Well, the American people heard some of that case made about Donald Trump, and they voted him president of the United States again. So I think we live in a time where those types of things, whatever you might think of his character or his personal relationships, they're not disqualifying. American people have pretty much closed the book on that in their election of Donald Trump, who himself faced a myriad of accusations about his own personal conduct, and ultimately the voters don't care. And I think that's the thing that Democrats kind of miss the boat on sometimes. When you play this game at these committee hearings, and mixed right, you kind of have a role to play, and everyone does this on each side of it, but you look a little out of touch. I would much rather they have spent their time drilling down on substantive policy. We have two major conflicts going on right now with Russia, Ukraine, and obviously the situation in the Middle East, potentially a situation with Taiwan and China. I'd much rather hear the conversation be about those substantive policy things, because that's what's going to have the most impact on DOD, on our troops and service members, on their families. What is the policy going to be regarding those hotbed conflicts? How are you going to manage resources and allocate? Because ultimately, that's what you will be held accountable for. The most disastrous thing that happened in the Joe Biden presidency was the mismanagement of the withdrawal from Afghanistan. These are the real substantive, tangible things that affect lives in a very real way. I think Democrats would be better focusing on stuff like that.
Mick, the FBI, in his background report, did not interview several key witnesses. They didn't interview the woman who accused him of sexual assault. They didn't interview one of his ex-wives who called repeatedly saying she would like to testify and give them information. Why didn't they do that?
I don't know. That's a really good question. That surprises me. Keep in mind, the FBI that's doing that is technically the Biden FBI. The Trump team hasn't taken over at the Department of Justice or at the FBI yet. So I don't know why. If I had to guess, it'd be an educated guess, but still a guess, is that they didn't think it would be relevant to what they were taking a look at. Typically, they do go fairly deep into your background. Again, everything you've done pretty much, and I've been through this process for Senate confirmation, since you were 18 years old. That's what this is about, is tell us everything you've done since you were 18, and then we're going to go and investigate it and then give it to your political enemies. So, but Kurt is right. Look, listen, the question about whether or not someone was drunk at a Christmas party 10 years ago probably doesn't matter nearly as much as the position, say, on women in the military. So
I think the accusations, though, Mick, you know that, and listen, you've served in the Trump cabinet before. You know how important the position of defense secretary is. You know that they get, I mean, I interviewed former defense secretary on this show a few weeks ago, and he said he slept 4.5 hours during the whole time that he was defense secretary. It is a 24/7 job. You get calls all hours of the night. And the accusations against Hegseth go over many, many, many years, and they're excessive. And you can't have somebody who's under the influence or has a problem with alcohol and maybe hasn't come to grips with it in this position, don't you think?
I agree with everything factually you just said, but whether or not somebody was drunk at a Christmas party 10 years ago doesn't tell you what they're going to do tomorrow.
I know, but there are more accusations than that.
I know there are, but
there are.
But to the same point, you'll appreciate this. Hegseth said he wasn't going to drink anymore. And I happen to take him his word at that. Look, if the guy shows up at the Pentagon and starts drinking on the job, we are going to know about it, and it's going to be a major issue. There's no question about it, but it's not the most important thing today. Most important thing today is women in the military. Talk about how you would have gotten out of Afghanistan. What are you going to do about China? What are you going to do in Gaza? What are you going to do in Ukraine? Those are the issues. To the extent ordinary people care, that's what they care about, not whether or not he was drinking at a party 10 years ago.
And yet, Kurt, we didn't get any questions on that. We did on women in combat, and a lot of people were not clear on whether or not he really means it when he says, oh, I've changed my mind after 12 years of saying they don't belong anywhere near combat.
Yeah, I think it's just a missed opportunity by Democrats. I get one Senate Democrat asking the question about his position on women in the military, and that is a very relevant question to ask, and that's fair game. But exhausting all of your time going through every accusation, one, it's not going to matter. Two, you don't have any new information to disprove anything that's already in the public domain, so what's the point? And three, ultimately, this Secretary of Defense, if he's confirmed, and the President will be judged by the performance on these bigger issues. Again, the Afghanistan situation was such a body blow to the Biden presidency, a real black mark, probably the darkest mark in his presidency. That will have real repercussions. And so if Democrats are looking for ways to kind of use these hearings to set these markers, use it on the policy, because it's very volatile, it's very real. There are broad implications for our service members and their livelihoods and their lives. that's where the focus should be.
All right, Kurt Bardella and Mick Mulvaney, thanks so much, both of you, for being with us. Really appreciate it.